Hello and welcome to Explain Everything. We're at the headquarters of the #1 digital whiteboard platform in the world. In today's conversation, we'll discuss visual note-taking with Reshan Richards. Hi, Reshan.
Hi, Bart.
You have a unique vantage point on visual note-taking by being an educator and by helping to create a digital whiteboard. What came first? Interest in methods of sharing understanding, visual forms of communication, or technology that supports it?
I think the order you presented is actually pretty accurate as far as my priorities or perhaps the steps that led me down this path. So first, I've always been interested in how people, especially young people, are able to share what they know and trying to find multiple ways to express understanding of everything, or of anything. In schools, modes of assessment are often very rigid and very standardized, but we all know and are aware everybody learns and expresses themselves in different ways. So I've always looked at, well, what are other means of doing that? Actually, maybe I'll invert it. I think maybe next was then looking towards technology for solutions that allow different modes of expression. And I think I started working in schools at a time where technology was just starting to emerge as something that anyone could access or choose to use. And I saw great potential in a whole variety of tools. But eventually I landed on this idea of being more visual, whether it's through drawing or mixing media together as a really powerful way to express understanding or demonstrate understanding. So, and then more recently, I've gotten really into this form of visual note-taking, whether you call it doodling or sketchnoting or graphic facilitation. There are all kinds of terms to describe it, but I found that is a really powerful way to capture and then be able to share understanding on any topic.
Right, and you do it quite often during the meetings using your digital whiteboard. How does visualizing a meeting change the conversation with those participants?
So what's interesting is I've been in meetings where people have taken typed notes or handwritten notes and circulated them afterwards, but somehow, the synthesis and arrangement when you're using visuals, it allows for a different story. Because right now, when you take notes and you're just listening and touch typing, people can type at a pretty rapid pace, so you're not necessarily making any selection or filtering of what's important or what's worth writing down. I think with handwriting notes that still exists there, but then to some degree you almost can't handwrite at the speed in order to keep up with what's happening. So I found that this doodling or visual diagramming, sketchnoting sits nicely in between there. But also, I found that when people see those notes, they all of a sudden get a glimpse into how somebody else who was there,
Right.
what was important to them, right? And all of a sudden there's like, wow, this is a different way to look at an experience that I was also in. So when I've been in large keynote settings or small individual meetings, I found that the notes end up always being quite powerful, and nobody ever wants to see my typed notes or is interested in seeing my handwritten notes, but people are often saying, like, I'd like to see how you interpreted it visually.
Yes, and I think this takes the collaborative thinking into another level. So let me ask you, how does keeping a graphical record supports bigger picture thinking and communication among the team or the group you're meeting?
So the nice thing about the visual format when you do a sketch note or a visual note is that somebody at a glance can see it high level and notice things they want to focus in on. Or even if they were looking through it on their phone or just glanced at it for a second at the top of an email, you can evoke a response or elicit a response much more easily than if it's all printed word or typed word, because the reader has to first read it and then generate a response. But when it's communicated through imagery, you're able to reach some sort of cognitive response more quickly. So I found that when you have these visual records over time, you can actually get a better snapshot of progress of a discussion, an idea, or whatever it may be, in a much more powerful way, or maybe just in a differently powerful way than if it was just a running record of page after page of text-based notes. It doesn't allow somebody to step back and have a high-level look at the progress, because you have to get in and actually read the details.
I remember the quote from David Sibbett. He's the pioneer of the visual facilitation, and he suggested in one of his books that iPad is the spear tip of the visualization revolution on the tool side. Yet we don't see many visual facilitators using iPad these days. So what do you think? Why that is?
I think people develop their habits and routines of what works well for them, and I don't think to make that type of experience more accessible to other people so they can understand the power of visualizing, note-taking, facilitating meetings in a graphic way. I feel like digital tools create an entry point for more people so that you don't require a professional graphic facilitator necessarily, but everybody can start to contribute in that way. Now I think professional graphic facilitators will then be able to focus on even higher level tasks if more people are at the ground level starting to be more visual in their communication.
Great. Thank you for sharing your experiences with us.
Thanks very much.